agenda is the EV charging stations at Stop and Shop. Do we have anyone here for that? Please raise your hand. Is anyone here from Volta?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. I apologize.
No problem. Hi, Peter. How are you?
Hi,
Please
Dipti. I'm doing
introduce
good.
yourself.
Thank you. I'm Peter Saltakis. I work with Kimberly Horn, the engineer of record for this charging station project for Stop and Shop. So I think I'm here today presenting this project alone on behalf of Volta Charging and Stop and Shop. Would
So
I be
we
able to
understand you made some revisions. Would you like to go through those?
We did. Would I be able to share my screen?
I actually have it on. I don't know if you can see it, but you know what? Let me stop sharing. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
It's always very upsetting when somebody stops sharing.
Okay, thank you everyone for your time tonight. We've made a couple of revisions to the project and we're primarily focused around the station placements. So last time we previously had the stations placed on the ends of the islands to the closest part of the interior circulation aisle. And we've bounced this off of Volta and Stop and Shop and received their approval. And what they're looking to do is move it to the other side of this aisle to increase the visibility and sight lines for cars and passengers moving around the site. I know previously we had discussed potentially relocating the stations along this side of the site. However, this is a retaining wall and there's no space between the existing parking spots and the retaining wall to accommodate the stations, as well as several spots along this side of the wall are ADA stalls in addition to Stop and Shop's click and collect pickup stalls, which are not available for our station placements. So we've remediated the issue regarding sight lines for the project, or the concerns regarding those, by placing the stations farther away from this interior portion of the site so that drivers can have much better visibility throughout. And all other changes associated with these station placement movements would be with respect to the conduit. So the conduit will similarly be bored underneath the parking lot, just a slightly longer conduit run to accommodate this, which won't provide any above grade issues for this site. And we have prepared some renderings of what these would look like on site. So this would be one of the stations. So we're going to place it right in front of this tree, and the tree is going to be remained. We might have to trim up a small portion of this bush, this little small shrub, to accommodate the foundation. However, this would be the view for this station as well. So again, we have a much better view of this area of the site. And then the other station will be going at the end of this island, which similarly we'll have to do a little trimming of the shrub over here. But there's where on this portion of the site where there's the turn into the main entrance is again much visible. And we have the retaining wall featured back here, which is the main reason why we can't really put anything over here for the stations. I know that was a thought that we had previously. So that's primarily the scope changes of the project. And I'd be happy to answer any questions or address any further concerns at this time.
Peter, we had several members of the board who had questions. Dale, would you like to go first?
No, I think you'd answered the questions. The only concern that I still have is accessibility to those locations, because they are the prime location where people park. It's a first come, first serve basis. So it'll just make those charging stations not as accessible to the people who need them, because it's such a prime spot. Those are such prime spots, but that's my only comment.
And just to speak to that, ideally, people would hopefully respect that these stations are intended for people with EVs and that these stalls are EV capable, but we completely see that we can't enforce this. We can't really have a parking lot attendant out there all the time to guide people away. So
fully understand that. Is there going to be any signage on the spot itself or ground marking on the pavement?
So the stations will have striping, and then the station's gonna have a bollard. and that the
Okay.
request of Stop and Shop, sorry, a bollard with a signpost, with just a 1.5 square foot sign, and at the request of Stop and Shop, we are not putting a signpost on this stall. It will just have the striping, indicating that this is an EV capable charging
Okay.
stall.
Good.
Brandon, you had some questions?
I mean, my preference, even though the challenges with the retaining wall and having to give up some of the spots would still be a preference to have them on the west side of the site. I may be, that's just my opinion. It's either that or make them more prominently shown at the ends of the parking lot where, you know, they're not as prime of spots, but also you still get the same marketability to address something like, you know, Dale's question. If they're not as primely located and they're closer to the street, it may actually allow them to be better used for people who need them. But again, those are, I think the renderings and the locations as proposed, I don't disagree with. I just have a preference that they be located elsewhere.
Eric, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I'm kind of with Brandon. I don't look from an aesthetic point of view. I don't love having more screens with advertising on them just in general, which obviously is kind of against what the company's trying to do. So obviously getting them further away would be my preference, but I see the adjustment that was, these are better locations than what was originally proposed.
Paul?
This is definitely an improvement. At the very least, I don't think this is going to be a safety issue as it could have been with the prior placement. I think they could be better located in terms of utility for people with EVs. I agree with Dale on that point. This location is fine as far as I'm concerned.
So Peter, as you heard, most of the board members, and I agree with them, that we would still prefer for this location to be a little further away and not the prime spots that all of us usually at one time or the other try to grab these spots when we go and, shop at the store. Also, there's one more condition is that typically Dobbs Ferry doesn't allow screens, especially screens late at night. Is there going to be a time limit to what this is? I don't know if you answered this last time, but please refresh that.
Absolutely. So I guess just to speak quickly to the charging, the time limit on the charging would be 2 hours, and at that point the station is shut off. And then regarding the screens and how they're on, they'll only be on during business hours, and then they automatically dim with ambient lighting. So when the sun sets, they'll know to dim their lighting. So it goes from about 2,500 nits down to about 1,400 nits. So with ambient lighting, they do decrease their brightness and then shut off during business hours. So it'd be 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. most days. And then on Sunday, they would shut off at 10 p.m., which is based off of Stop and Shop's current hours. And to speak further to the placements themselves, unfortunately, we just cannot put the stations anywhere along this side based on the ADA parking and the click and collect Stop and Shop stalls. And then any similar other kind of placement along the site will either greatly increase the cost of the project, making it potentially not feasible for Volta. In addition to just considering the existing conditions of the site, we don't have larger landscape islands where we could fit the construction pad and the station safely for it not to be an obstacle on this site. So the way they're placed now is really the next best and only best option at this point if we can't place them on this interior aisle. This is really based on part of the Volta model, and I definitely understand the concerns. I'm just speaking from this is really what Stop and Shop and Volta can go with at this point. So I don't know if that's okay or not, but that in terms of placements, these have really been the workshopped placements of what could work at this point.
So one of the questions that the town and this board would like to find out is if Volta would be able to put in e-bike chargers since you're running the lines anyways. If you could throw in a couple of chargers for e-bikes, I think that would definitely go a long way in terms of making peace with the town. Let me put it this way.
I understand that aspect, and we have posed the question to both Volta and Stop and Shop, and at this time, neither of them are able to add that to the scope of this project. If the town would be looking to still have that added during construction, I can relay that message to Volta and Stop and Shop. I just know from a maintenance standpoint and I'll say initial upfront cost standpoint, neither Volta or Stop and Shop are currently able to make that part of this project scope. This project scope is solely to be limited to the electric vehicle charging stations for vehicles. And I completely understand the multimodal aspect that the town is looking to achieve with this project. It's just that this project is solely being proposed as electric vehicle charging stations, and neither Volta or Stop and Shop can add e-bike charging to the scope of the project at this time.
Even if it
Just for context, I mean, we're not talking about a significant amount of additional cost nor infrastructure. We're talking about outlets that can take, they're essentially outlets that have a dedicated circuit in places that you're already running conduit. Right.
And I completely understand.
Just 1 second. So, while I understand that these locations are what is being proposed and feasible for Volta and for Stop and Shop to make this work, some of the things that are being quoted today, haven't been verified or studied via a traffic engineer with a submitted report. Their preference, not based off of, a specific study performed that this board has the power to request if this was to move forward. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of that as representing your client and the owners here, because I think what we're asking for is reasonable.
And I absolutely agree that it's a reasonable ask. I just know that at this time, they are not looking to add that to the scope. So if that is, again, a request of the board, I can definitely let Volta and Stop and Shop know. I just understand from their perspective that they aren't able to include that scope at this time.
There's nothing that says that we can't make it a condition of the approval, Dipti, and then refer it if we need to ZBA.
John?
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that it go to the ZBA because this is not code compliant. I mean, unless John disagrees with me, my understanding is that this is not code compliant. I'm sorry, we haven't met. My name is Matt Rosenberg. I'm the Board of Trustees liaison to the AHRB. I think the village has maintained a code that says there's no bright moving signage in the village, and you're asking for an exception to that. And I think what the AHRB here has asked for is a low-cost way to get us over the fact that you have a non-complying project. So I'm not speaking for the AHRB because I'm not allowed to speak for the AHRB, but speaking for myself, I think that you would be wise to go back to your client and say, chances are putting in the e-bike stuff will be a lot less expensive than going to the ZBA and getting over a code violation.
And I completely agree. And just to speak to this place themselves, Matt, that there are no animations. I just wanted to confirm that it's all static imagery, but I completely understand the perspective that the e-bike charging is a low-cost solution to moving this project forward, which I will relate back to Volta, Stop and Shop.
Peter, in our code, there is no neon or lit signs allowed in Dobbs Ferry. The reason you've gone here is to try and work this out to get the charging stations and bicycle charging stations and not have to go get denied from the building department on this application and be sent to the zoning board of appeals. So that's why we brought you to AHRB.
Let me speak
Instead
to
of-
policy for a second. We in Dobbs Ferry are very interested in encouraging more trips that are powered by electricity than gas. And because we are a very hilly village, there's been a lot of movement towards e-bikes, even at there's a lot of e-bikes going to the high school. So kids are getting around on e-bikes. We don't see a reason to favor EVs over EBs, I guess. And I do note, just from a business model perspective, that you guys care more about the presence of billboards in the parking lot at Stop and Shop than you probably do around getting cars charged. So it probably doesn't matter to you that much, not you, but to Volta, whether or not somebody actually plugs in a car on that station. Their mission will have been accomplished in that they will have signage that they can sell space on. So Dobbs Ferry is looking at this as a for-profit thing. I'm looking at it as a for-profit thing. The board has asked you to make a very small accommodation in order to both further a village policy and get over a village restriction. So I think that's the message.
So Peter, I recommend that you go back again and find out whether they would be willing to go before the zoning board to get this approved, or they have the option of putting in the e-bike chargers on the station, and we can take another look at it at the next meeting.
John, Dipti, Meg, I mean, I'd like to make the suggestion that we can approve the locations with the stipulation that outlets for e-bike charging be included. That way they don't, if they make the right decision, they wouldn't have to come back to our specific board and they can move forward.
We can, you could approve it with that condition. I just don't know if Peter thinks that they're gonna want to proceed with that condition.
Well, they can always come back again, right, John? I mean, it's
Yes.
nothing stopping them from making another application
No,
without that as a stipulation and stating their case. I do think there may be some people from the community. I see a question in the Q&A for looking to make comment on this. So maybe we hear them out before we.
yes.
Is there anyone?
That's from 72 Colonial, the Q&A.
Hello,
Oh, they're here for 72 Colonial.
am I on?
No, I think Niall, are you looking to make comment on this application?
Yes. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, Niall, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, as you know, I'm up next on this next application. So I'm here as a resident, speaking as a resident and speaking as a fully electric vehicle owner and a plug-in hybrid vehicle owner. If I understand this correctly, these are, what is the size? The LED screens, sort of advertising screens, which I have to say, I think would set a very negative precedent for Dobbs Ferry. I don't think we have any screens like that in Dobbs Ferry. And as much as I love the idea of having plug-in stations, because those are the vehicles I drive, I love the fact that I don't have to go to the gas station anymore. I just don't see these in Dobbs Ferry. I really, and you know, these have a positive attribute because yes, they are providing plug-in stations for people, but someone else can come and say, hey, you put these advertising boards, LED screens in, I should be able to do it for some. I mean, you know how the precedents work. I mean, that would be a valid argument because it's really, as Matt said, you know, it's more about, you know, to be cynical, more about the advertising and the appearance and the large scale of it than maybe it is about the. I mean, why can't Stop and Shop put in charge point stations like we have at the Village Hall? They can afford to do that. And it would be a positive thing. It would help them too, you know, because people would say, wow, look what they're doing for the community. So I'm very much against the idea of putting these types of signs at Dobbs Ferry. I just think that's the potential of setting a negative precedent, something we certainly don't want to see, in my opinion.
Just as an FYI, there is
electric charging stations, but it's just not appropriate the way they're designed.
There is 2 of these charging stations in Dobbs Ferry already,
Like
down
that?
at Mom's Organic.
Where?
Yes,
It's under the
Identical.
garage, though.
yes.
Well, I think it's a shame. I haven't seen them. I mean, the normal, sort of normal, quote unquote, one in the Village Hall parking lot, of course, is wonderful. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a shame if we set that precedent already, because we're gonna have these kinds of signs everywhere now. That would be a great shame. Speaking as someone who was born in Dobbs Ferry, grew up next to Matt Rosenberg. That's a shame. I haven't seen them, but I think it's just not appropriate. And I'm not voting, just my opinion.
So Peter, coming back again, would you be willing to go back to talk to Volta and Stop and Shop?
I am absolutely willing to go back and talk to them. I just unfortunately can't necessarily make that call, but I will absolutely relay to them if we have a conditional approval, what the stipulations are, or if that's not the possibility, then the message of this is what we need to do. I'm absolutely willing to get that message across to them. So I guess just to speak to that, if we are going to look towards potentially a conditional approval based on e-bike charging, are there any specific design requirements that you'd be looking to see regarding the number of receptacles or the types of outlets?
I believe they need to be 110, but Matt, do you have any more information on that?
I don't have specs. I imagine Volta, a company in the electric vehicle charging business, has some sense of what the space can handle and how much the draw is.
Yeah, I guess I'm not worried about necessarily if we can have the capacity. We should have capacity on the panels that we pull from. It's more so, are we looking to have a 1 outlet, 2 outlets? Just because I just don't want to necessarily go back and forth with the condition, oh, we didn't provide enough, or this isn't what we wanted. So I just want to make sure that that's okay before I start relaying
Personally,
the
I would
message.
like a reasonable number of parking of chargers for this space that that you can fit bicycles in on those islands.
I would imagine no more than 2, honestly, because once you put the bicycles there, you still need to have access to get to the electrical vehicle charger. If the bicycles are on the island, they're going to be sitting on top of the green space. And I just don't think you're going to have a lot of room left on those islands with 2 bicycles and 2 outlets, one on either side, for example.
So I might have misunderstood. Are we looking to place the e-bike charging next to the station?
No,
Well,
the intent, I think, is to actually have the e-bike charging integrated into the station.
into the station.
Well,
Yes.
if that's not something that you guys have manufactured before, then I think we would be happy with any ability to charge an e-bike. I mean, that sounds like a design change on the actual kiosk.
Yeah, we definitely can't accommodate an integrated bicycle charging into the station. I would love
Okay.
that, but what I think could do, and this is me speaking for myself, not from Volta and Stop and Shop, is have conduit come run next to the existing bicycle rack on site. So we have I'm not sure if we can see the image. Hopefully it worked. But this is the existing bicycle rack on site.
The indication was from our town fire inspector was that this was not acceptable. It's too close to the building.
Okay, I think we said 20 foot off of the building would be the requirement.
Yes.
So we would have to identify another portion of the site for this. But I don't think that we'd be able to, definitely not have the e-bike charging as part of the fixture here. But if we're looking to be placing the e-bike charging farther away, that would add a lot more cost. So it's not necessarily going to be the same run. So, and this is me just speaking, not for Volta and Stop and Shop. I just don't know how receptive they would be to that added cost. So we might have to look into potentially placing the receptacles closer to the building, especially considering if it's a standard outlet, that shouldn't provide any concerns for fire. But that's not my call to make, hopefully.
Perhaps Volta should look into a new design for incorporating those, because I think that that might be something in the near future that probably is going to be much more in keeping with what's coming down the pike in terms of global warming and people, wanting more sustainable, vehicles. If you can even go back to your engineers and find out if that is going to be a possibility.
I don't think it's a big stretch.
It's a
Peter?
good suggestion, but I don't think we can ask for that.
So
Why not?
I can speak to the product. The product isn't changing. It just is
Peter,
not
I have
changing.
a question. Right next to each charging station on the island are light poles.
Absolutely.
That's a very easy place
Mhm.
to put outlets on the light pole, which would not interfere at all
Good
with
idea.
drilling holes in your kiosk or anything.
Absolutely. So
Because there's a light pole there. And then a light pole at the other one, I believe,
absolutely.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
So
One-
it's as simple as putting a couple GFIs on each pole. You're running the conduit already to get the voltage to your Volta charger. So another 5 feet to make it to the light pole. You put a couple GFIs there, call it a day.
and I'm personally fully on board with that. I just need to make sure that Volta
Right.
and Stop and Shop can be too. So would we be looking now for the bike rack, because we'd have to have some kind of object there for the bikes themselves to go in front of the light poles here,
Mhm.
and we'd be
I
okay with
think
moving the
it's sort of
shrub.
very easy metal. It only has to accommodate 1 to 2 bikes. I think just like
Simple loop.
a simple loop.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Something that they could lock their bicycle into, that's it.
I do apologize that we can't, provide a better confirmation of this right now, but I will make sure that this all goes back to Stop and Shop and Volta so that they can make a decision on how they want their project to move forward.
You might look at forms and surfaces, exterior furniture. I think they have bike rack ideas that might be helpful to you.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
John, are we giving them conditional approval today, or should they just come back for the next meeting? Matt?
I think,
Yeah, I prefer them to come back with something.
I think
definitive.
it would be a good idea for you to just come back with this and let us know which way you want to go, right? Because we don't even know which way you want to go.
right,
Well-
if they're not on board with doing the EV chargers,
Correct.
then the application is going to get denied and sent to the ZBA. So basically, that's where we're at, correct, Dipti?
Yes, that's correct, John. Thank you.
So it really depends on that. I don't see us conditionally approving this if Peter can, which I understand Peter can't answer this question tonight. So
So
I
we
think
should
we
just
need to
continue.
continue.
We should just
Yeah.
continue until you are able to let us know which way you want to go.
yes,
Okay?
So
Uh,
if I may just include, please, really quickly, I know Stop and Shop will have a construction freeze towards the end of the year. I know that this is a site that they definitely want to have the stations in the ground and start construction as soon as possible. So with a conditional approval, they might be more apt to be inclined to agree to e-bike charging potentially. And if not, then that becomes fully null and void and we have to go to ZB anyway. So I definitely, while I understand that it might not be preferred, I would greatly ask if you could consider possibly granting conditional approval on the stipulation that e-bike charging must be required.
John, Matt?
You need to have some sort of design approval of whatever that manifestation is. I mean, you'd have to be pretty specific in what the contingency is when we don't know what the charging, the stand options are.
we're
It would
asking
have to-
for two outlets with 2 loops.
I put
to
a
plug bicycles in.
I put an image in the chat of a bike rack called the Trio bike rack. That could probably have a bicycle on either side of it. And it could be mounted near the light pole.
How do I get to the chat?
Yeah, I
Um,
don't see it.
Okay, you go down to the Q&A section
Uh-huh.
and you'll see a link.
Oh, I see. Answered. There's
Got it.
an answered tab at the top.
Yep,
I see it. Thank you.
you're welcome. And there are a few other ones in there too. This is the one I found real quick.
So,
I personally think we need to see this application again. That's just my personal opinion.
I would agree, Paul. I would agree with Paul that we can put it this way, Peter, is that if this is acceptable, if you can come back and just, have a final drawing, assuming that this is acceptable to both Volta and Shop and Stop, showing us how the e-bike charging would work, I think we would be able to approve this at the next go round.
With
So
e-bike,
may I make a motion to continue this meeting? Dale,
Second,
Paul, Eric, Brandon, agree?
Yeah,
Okay, we'll continue the meeting based on the stipulation that that Volta and Stop and Shop will come back with a design for adding on e-bikes or make a decision whether they want to go before the zoning board to get this approved. Thank you.
all right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Next item on the agenda is 72
Colonial.
Colonial. Thank you.
Mhm.
See me a moment there. 72 Colonial, and I believe Niall is here.
Okay, I'm on. I'm Niall Kane. I'm the architect representing Diane McKay and Robert Dickey, and this is a fairly extensive re-landscaping of their property. And if I could just share my screen here, I always seem to have some little hiccup, but let's give it a go. It's not really what I want to show though. Oh, here it is. Okay. All right. So yeah, this is a survey of the property. I think, I don't know, most of you are where it is. It's on Colonial Avenue. It's directly across from the Colonial Springs pool, which is right down here. As you can see, they have a fairly extensive street frontage. And there are a lot of issues currently with the property. It's been sort of in the state that it's been for as long as I can remember, particularly this sort of edge here, which is all eroded and so forth. So we're going to improve that. The other thing about this site is that there is quite a bit of impervious surface. There's a long driveway here that is impacted gravel that is impervious, and there's a macadam asphalt driveway in the back here. So we're going to reduce the size of this, put in a nice front lawn, and put in all pervious paving, so reducing the impervious surface by more than 4,000 square feet in this project, which is good. So this is the proposal. It's really sort of a design drawing with pictures of the various plants and so forth. It's not a technical construction drawing. There are some minor differences which in the next drawing, which I can show you. But basically, this is it. The odd thing about this property is that this is the front of the house, the front yard, and they have a big driveway currently, so they want to put in a nice lawn and fairly extensive planting beds throughout the property. And in this zone here, we're going to be re-landscaping and redoing the grading a bit just to sort of smooth it out. In this zone, one of the things that the client would like to do is just raise this property up because it slopes and just create a much nicer lawn play area for the children. So we are proposing a stone retaining wall here, which is, you can see this image down here will be very, very similar to this wall here. You can see, well, I'll show you specific pervious paving, but that's the idea for the pervious paving. There's a nice little arched brick path here. And the other element of this is a fence. We're fencing in the property just in this triangle here, which is effectively their rear yard. And I know the fact that they have so much street frontage makes it a bit of a puzzle as to what is front yard and what is street frontage and so forth. We do have this fences coming around at 6 feet. We actually did go to the zoning board, requested that this portion also be 6 feet just to keep the deer out, because the deer don't seem to understand our zoning code, which says a fence has to be 4 feet in front, but nevertheless, the street frontage is going to be 4 feet now. And then it pops up to 6 feet. And we feel like probably with this retaining wall, there are enough obstacles to keep the deer out in this zone as well. Architecturally, we're not doing anything to the house except redoing this front, this deck here. You'll see in a moment it's not in great shape, and also rebuilding this stair leading down into the backyard. This is more of a site plan, sort of technical drawing showing the stormwater drainage and so forth that we're proposing. I'll just skip to the landscape plan. And again, this is the landscape plan. There's some slight, this being sort of the more technical drawing. We just made this more of a little K-turn area here. So it's a minor difference. In this zone, by the way, is an existing condition is a stone wall, which is collapsing. So we're going to rebuild that stone wall as part of the project and raise up this little bit of driveway to allow for a K-turn area. It's very awkward now. They actually have to back all the way out. They pull in here. And again, here you can see the little turnaround drop-off area here in the front, which they've always had, and these nice stone piers here, which were part of the original house years ago, which they want to retain. So this is really the sort of architectural part of it in terms of the change to the house. This deck, this is the existing deck, new stair, new railing. I actually glossed over this picture up here, didn't mean to, but oops, I can't see it because I have these images here. Can you see this full image here, or do you have the same screen I have in that you don't see it? But anyway, that's the house we did down on Livingston, and we're going to have the railing is going to be very similar to what we did there, white with yeah, just white railing with some nice sort of significant posts, which sort of appropriate to the scale of the house. This is the fence. It's an iron fence detail with a little finial on top, so it's going to be quite nice wrapping around the house. I guess, sorry if I go back just a bit, just to be very clear, I realize the fence goes all the way around. It is contiguous, and there is that gate that I just showed you right here, and there's a nice little sort of fountain element here and a little fire pit here, which I think will be quite nice because it'll be lit up, and you can see sort of a view from as you come toward the house here. And this is a shade garden that we're proposing. It's a shady area, and it's a lot of shade plants and nice little sort of rock garden area. This is all existing house, of course. This softer stone is existing. This sort of more sort of brighter rendered stone is all a new retaining walls and a new guardrail right here. And of course, this fence at 4 and 6 feet as it wraps around. And these walls, this shows the site section, how the site is going to be filled to raise it up a bit. And this is a rendering, a drawing or elevation of the fence as you drive up Colonial Avenue. Details of stone walls, details of the fountain. The wall that is the retaining wall is going to be a loose stone wall, similar to the photograph that I just showed you. These are details of the posts. Again, stolen from the 55 Livingston project, basically, but they look quite nice there. Materials, so the stone for the wall, which is similar to the stone on the existing house. This is Unilock paver, pervious pavers for the driveway with a border stone. This Unilock, again, pervious border stone. I guess actually, sorry, the stone itself won't be pervious because it has to contain this pervious stone. It says it's pervious paver, but then there's some lighting, all of which complies to the Dobbs Ferry lighting code. No sort of what do you call it? Off lighting. These are going to be in-ground lighting, just some nice soft lighting for the planting beds. And this is a little step light that is being used on that sort of northern driveway wall as you enter, as you pull the car in, to illuminate the path to the driveway. This is the existing condition. As you can see, it's not great. It's very eroded. The other part of this project is we're pulling down a lot of these Norway maples. In fact, all of these are Norway maples. They're going to come down, and we'll have the nice low shrubs here, retaining wall here. You can sort of imagine it. This stone wall being rebuilt, which is kind of falling forward. You can't tell, but it's not in great shape. And these photographs just kind of wind your way up the street here. So all of this will be regraded. These overgrown boxwoods are all disappearing, which is going to improve the sight lines around this corner, which has always been an issue. Am I going the right way here? Yeah, that's sort of the state of things. Is the worst bit, really, but just to point that out. And then, sorry, I'm rolling the wrong way, scrolling the wrong way. So it's going up. You can see that is not a great condition as you wrap around the corner, particularly people walking up to Colonial Springs Pool. And this is directly across from the pool, and this will all come down, and this tree is staying. And we'll have a nice ornamental tree in the middle, that's sort of weeping cherry. And then, I don't know, I keep rolling the wrong way. So this is down the driveway to what is the front of the house, which is not facing the road, just the way the house was built. And again, no changes there, just so you can see kind of wrapping all the way around. Stone wall remains, and again, this is all being redone, which is never really in keeping with the house. So it'll be a big improvement. I think that's, and this will be redone here. This is all staying the same. Pervious paving. I think that's about it.
The two questions, Niall. All that blacktop that's in front of the front door is going to come out, right? Yes.
This all comes out.
This all comes out, and that's going to become grass, and then you have a walkway.
And then the pervious paving comes up just to the sort of side edge of this house here and stops. So
and also, how tall are those retaining walls? Because when I was looking at the drawings, I couldn't see that information. The new walls that you have in the backyard,
yeah,
on Colonial Avenue, whatever you want to call that yard.
Yeah, a maximum 5 feet, but it tapers to sort of 2 or 18 inches as it works its way up Colonial.
Because it all slopes down, right?
Yeah.
Or slopes up, whichever way you're looking at it.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah.
No, I think it's a nice project. Anyone have any questions? Brandon?
No, I think it's a good, it's a drastic, I mean, it's definitely improved. I wouldn't say it's unsightly in its current condition, but I definitely think that it's an improvement to replant and to, do a little beautification to the landscaping and all around. So it's going to make the landscaping in front of the Colonial Springs Pool look shabby when it's all said and done. So maybe they're members
of that pool. Don't insult the landscaping.
What?
I said I'm a member of that pool. Don't insult our landscaping.
So yeah, maybe they'll make it. Maybe they'll make some improvements directly across the street now. But I'm just I think it's an improvement. I didn't have any other. The hatching on the existing deck is bold. Or is that being replaced or refurbished, repainted? Is that all remaining the same? I just wasn't 100% clear based on the imagery.
What do you mean,
around the-
hatching on the existing, or you mean the rate, what do you mean by?
Well, the
hatching?
existing, the
the
existing
drawing.
decking and everything that's going on, that all just remains as is, correct?
No, this all changes. This is
It all changed, okay, I just, that's fine.
that was what I showed in the render. Yeah, everything that's visible. I mean, we're keeping the joists are fine, so.
Yeah, okay,
And this, sorry, and this ramp, I don't know, was put in at some point, that's coming out.
okay. Sorry, I missed, I must have
Yeah, no.
misunderstood.
Dale?
I think if that's all on the right material and in keeping with, color, I
Yes.
think
Oh,
it's a good
white,
application.
white with Ipe deck and
I have no comments. It's very nicely thought and well organized. Good. Looking good.
Eric, you have any questions?
No questions. I agree with the other board members. I think it's very well thought out and looks like a good project.
Paul, you have questions?
Just, I mean, real quick, Niall, do you mind going back to the elevation with the deck on it, the new one?
Mhm.
Or just with the ramp, okay, I see.
So the ramp, yeah, there was a ramp here that's just,
That's gone, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be much better.
that's
Oh,
all
this is
new.
gonna be, Niall, this is gonna be so much better, and I appreciate what you're doing here. Thank you, and I thank the owners. Just to get on a soapbox real quick, in complete agreement with Brandon. As you come up Oliphant and Colonial, there is a lot that could be done to, especially around the pool, to beautify that part of this neighborhood. This is going to go a good way along those lines, but I think a lot has yet to be done, and I think that the wooded area around the pool and that little stone wall above it is in disrepair.
Yeah, well, that's a project we're focusing on at the Colonial Springs to try to get that repaired. But it's a beautiful old wall, so we want to repair it. We don't want to start pulling it down or anything like that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, but it definitely needs some work. So anyhow, that was my little 2 cents about that part of town. This looks great.
A quick question, if you don't mind. So Niall, I know, when you brought this project in front of the Board of Trustees, there was an intention to be on the, forget whether we have an easement there or whether it's the village right of way with a wall you were constructing. That wall is no longer on village property.
Yeah, I mean, we went through, since I've seen you last, we went to the planning board, and there was a stone wall here, which was kind of triggering the BOT review because it's within the right of way. Actually decided it's actually better without it, I think. So it was a twofold reason. I'm sorry, back up a little bit. The BOT was really pushing, trying to put a sidewalk in here, and it's a lot more difficult than it seems. You saw how steep that grade is. We'd have to build an extensive retaining wall all the way along here, and it would cost.
I'm not lobbying for the sidewalk that ship sailed. I just want to make sure that all of it, anything that's on the village's property is just landscaping and not the structure.
Right, that wall is gone. Yeah. I thought that's what you were sort of going toward. Is this discussion?
No. No, they had the right to say no to that. I mean, did I want it?
To bring it up,
Yes,
of course.
I wanted it very badly. Yes, but that, that ship sailed.
Yeah.
So Dipti, this is going to be pending planning board approval.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
Are there any members of the community who have any questions on this application? I guess not. Then I suggest we give an approval pending planning board approval. Do I have a second? Paul seconds. Everyone approves. Thank you, Niall.
Okay.
It's a nice project. I think the owners are doing the right thing.
Connect. Okay. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Good night.
Good night, and
You have to end,
I'm sorry.
you have to end the meeting.
Yes, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you. I always forget that, John. Do I have approval for adjourning the meeting? Thank you. Dale agrees. Eric, Brandon. Have a good night.
Yeah, thank you.
Everybody,
everybody.
thank you for the whole thing.
Thank you for your time, guys, and Dipti.
Good night.